Hello, everyone. Depending on where you're dialing in. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And first of all, many thanks for joining us today. So, this is our second session, as we discussed previously, in the series of learning series of Invoice Capture Solution. And in our today's topic is mainly focused on custom AI model. And we'll see how to create a new model, how to deploy the model, and how to attach that model into the invoice capture solution. But before we deep dive into agenda, let's look at our standard announcements. In our meeting today, we asked everyone to express your viewpoints or any kind of a questions related to topics today. We would love to answer other questions as well, subject to if time allows to interact with you. All participants by default will be muted. If you want to ask any questions, you can raise your hand or maybe you can use the chat window of MS Teams. We would also love to understand your view on the future topic where we want to more understand from our learning experience perspective and can be presented by our user group. In terms of agenda today, let's quickly see what we are going to present. We will begin the session by understanding the introduction to the custom AI model for capturing the invoices in the invoice capture solution. Second, we will look at the standard invoice model, which pre-bill model versus the custom AI model, right? So we will see a core difference between the pre-bill invoice model versus the custom invoice model. We will also pay attention to the importance of the custom AI model, very, very high level use cases that we try to capture so that everyone should understand in case if he or she is having a dialogue with the business users, because sometimes it is very difficult to have a dialogue with the business users and describe the view of why we need a custom AI model instead of the standard one. Then we will also see some of the key business use cases, and we will really dive into the importance of the custom AI model. And but obvious, we will see a live demo and how to create and train the AI model. We will help you to understand to enable that custom AI model into the invoice capture solution. And my friend Hamza will try to help us in that. And towards the end, we will also have an open Q&A and kind of questions if you have. We will try to address those questions as well. In terms of speaker today, my name is Rakesh. I'm an MVP in business application as well as fast track recognized solution architect from Microsoft in terms of focusing on architecting and designing and integrating the solutions for finance and operation apps. I'll take a pause. I would request my friend Hamza to introduce himself. Yeah. You're on mute, Hamza.
Hello everyone, I am Mohammad Hamza Khan. I am a generative AI and dynamics enthusiast. I am learning it. I'm a part of customer solution architecture team. And today I have worked on invoice capture for since it has arrived in January. I've been working on invoice capture, training it. There are some nitty-gritty things about this invoice capture, especially related to dynamics, and I would love to share my knowledge with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Hamza. Thanks for the introduction. So let's move on to the next slide. I will not spend too much time on this slide, just to set the context, nothing more than that. Especially for those who came from a background, a very basic background of invoice capture and custom model. It is always good to set the context before we dive into a technical aspect. That's the whole purpose of this 3 or 4 slides deck that I prepared. So but obviously, when you start any kind of a learning journey, first question come to our mind that what is this custom AI model, right? And what is this all about, right? So by definition, the custom AI model is basically referring to a machine learning kind of a model, which is specifically trained to extract relevant information automatically, but obvious, from a digital document. It could be any image, it could be any PDF document, it could be any kind of a handwritten text image as well, such as invoices or any kind of a document. Some of the key points that I strongly believe to be noted if you are new to this world of custom AI model is that it has to be built on top of your pre-built model, as we discussed before we begin the session, right? So if you want to start a journey of custom AI model with the help of Power Apps AI Builder capability, then you have to have select a pre-built model which Microsoft has shipped, and those pre-built model has been built on top of using the Azure services, which is a document intelligence set of models that Microsoft took. And with the help of this low code, no code, and pro code approach, you can select the pre-built model for, in the case of invoice in our today's topic, but you may have a different payment model based on your use case, and then you can build your custom model on top of that. In a nutshell, you cannot simply create your blank model from scratch within the Power Apps AI builder. If at all, if you want to go with this document-based scanning and all. It does allow you to, the rectify the recognition results by tagging the correct place of the invoices. Because when it comes to the standard invoices, those standard invoices have been trained with the humongous data in terms of trained that machine to learn, understand the structure of that model, fields of the models, etc., etc. But when it comes to custom model, it always gives the ability for the users to understand which fields that he or she wants to, map in terms of reading. So just for a demonstration purpose, I just try to capture two snapshots. Those are referred from standard Microsoft Learn portal, which gives you an idea. On the left-hand side, which is a standard invoice AI model, which is pretty much give you a very, very basic standard field extractions. You cannot go and beyond and add your custom fields. You cannot scan those fields which is not exist in this list. However, on the right-hand side, you get a canvas in the Power App AI Builder. You get the ability to select the respective fields. You get the ability to select your custom fields. You can define the rules, so on and so forth, right? So that's how the core difference from the field mapping perspective, right? But when it comes to the importance of the custom AI model, it is always fascinating to understand when you are playing any kind of a role for such as a consultant, technical consultant, and for an for example architect in front of customers. And if a customer asks a question, why should I go for a custom AI model, right? Why can't I stick to the standard models? So it is very, very important to understand the core aspects of this, right? So in my view, there are four core aspects that we should understand. One is the scope and the flexibility. Second one is the accuracy and the training and the maintenance of that model, because sometimes you may have thousands and 10,000s of invoices to be trained and to be maintained. It's also, important to manage the cost and the scalability, right? So at a very high level, if you go with this standard model, it's pretty much pre-built model, which gives you ability to extract the information which is baseline by Microsoft. You cannot change any kind of thing, which offers extracting the numbers, the days total, what we have seen in the previous, or such as the vendor information in the previous slide, right? Whereas in the custom AI model, you get the ability to define the specific key pair information, and then you can extract the information. It is always useful if you want to maintain that information as a collection. We will see in action what does it mean by collection and how to implement those custom AI models from a cost-effective solutions. Whereas your standard model always cost-effective in terms of pre-train, no need to train the model again. You just attach that model to invoice capture, and your scanning ability will start build from scratch, right? So that's the importance of the custom AI model versus the standard model. When it comes to the key business use cases, what I strongly believe that these are the five business use cases that we should always keep in mind. One is the automation of data extraction. Second one is the invoice validation and compliance, because many customers, they wanted to maintain the compliance portion as well. Then third aspect is the continuous improvement and that entire feedback loop of the data that is available, and then the identify the duplicate invoice detection, right? And last, which is nothing but your classification of criteria. So what it means, if I just deep dive more into each and every, or maybe just spiral out each and every aspect of this use case. First is automated data extraction, right? What it means that the custom AI model can automate the extractions of the key data from your invoice kind of a document, such as invoice numbers, line items, quantities, prices, taxes, or for example, vendor information, which literally allows or reduce the manual data entry and minimize the effort and provides the accuracy if you have that custom AI model. If I try to drill down further on this second use case, which is invoice validation and compliance, then in the category of this custom invoice data, against your predefined, the business rules, policies, compliances, and standards. So you can immediately flag those discrepancies if you have. That's how the ability of your custom AI model. Third aspect, which is your continuous improvements and feedback loop, which is nothing but the accuracy and the reliability and the relevance of that particular data that you are training. Fourth is nothing but your duplicate invoice, detections. Many times that I have seen when you try to use the custom AI model, it's really helpful to identify and flag the duplicate invoices based on the similarity or the content or invoice number, whatever the criteria that you have. And last is your classification of criteria. That's how I foresee these are the key business use cases that we should keeping in mind when it comes to implementation of the custom AI model versus the standard AI model in Invoice Capture. With that, I'll take a pause. I will request Hamza to share his screen and start with the custom AI model in Invoice Capture and help us to understand the aspect of what you learn when you create and the challenges, the struggle that you have, right? You had in the past.
Hello, everyone. So let me share my screen and take the presentation from Rakesh. Yes. So let me first baseline the invoice which we are going to use. So this is the invoice which we are going to use. In this invoice, as you can see, usually what happens is the vendor's name are at the top left, right? Here is where you are going to, where my bill to is there. Here is where you're going to actually find the vendor's name. But just for demonstration purposes, as we are using, custom invoices, I have marked it here. This is the vendor's name. There is no indication that this is a vendor or something. This is what I have trained it on. Okay. So now let me switch some gears and let's go to Power Apps. Yes. So this is the screen which will be visible when you are going to open Power Apps. Just make sure, since we are also integrating this model with Dynamics, just make sure that you're using the latest version or the version which is there after January. Because before January, what used to happen, you won't be able to, although this model is there in Power Apps since a long time, you won't be able to see this. You won't be able to, capture this in Dynamics as it was disabled. You would have only be able to use the standard model. And all this integration of, models and everything into Dynamics, I believe that's already been explained in the session which was conducted on 30th of March. So you can watch YouTube tutorial about it. There's a tutorial on YouTube, which all whatever setups you need to do, uh, that's been done. That session was conducted on 30th last month. So let me go over here. So this is the screen which is going to be visible to you when you are going to open Power Apps. So then you have to go to AI Hub. Okay. When you're going to AI Hub, you can see there are multiple models, right? Let me open this. Since we are using a trial environment, what is going to happen is the screen loading is going to take some time because there is only a limited amount of bandwidth and computing resources which are available to us. So these are different kind of categories of models which are already been there by Microsoft. Since we are using invoice processing, it's recommended that we go with this model because in my personal experience, if you use documented processing models or different models or text recognition and document processing model, what is going to happen that when you open this model in Dynamics, your model is not going to be visible. Okay, I will show that to you later. So if you go to invoice processing model, then you have to create a custom model. Our custom model is not a custom model from scratch. We are creating a custom model from from a base, that is the pre-build model. So the pre-build model is going to be our base, and over that we are adding the customization layer. Okay, so if you click on custom model, this is what is going to open. So just for, for time purposes, for time constraint, I have, we have a model which is already trained. I could have, shown it to over here. But now as I have opened this window is going to take some time to load now. So let me close this. Okay. So you can see here, you can decide whatever fields you actually need to extract, or what is the information which you need to do. So I have extracted this salesperson field. I have added this, this is not a standard field as Rakesh have shown you in the PPT. This is a custom field which I have added. So I have added that field, that's a text field. Especially, but there's a feature for numbers, you can look at this number field list. Let me show this to you. Yes, you can add a name, and this has a format. So sometimes what is happening is when you have some values, especially some transactional values, it is either separated by dot or it is separated by comma. So that format Microsoft have released it, and this feature was not available when this model was initially released. When this model was initially available for Dynamics, way back in January. When I was doing research at that time, when I was trying and find what is available and what is not available, this format was you know definitely not available at that time. Microsoft has been steadily updating it. There has been incremental progress with the later version. So today today what I am going to show it to you, that might not be relevant 1 year down the line. It might be relevant up to certain point, because Microsoft has been keeping on adding multiple, it's an incremental progress, but there's definitely a lot of progress which Microsoft is doing. So let me go to next. So here you add a collection. So the collection, basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to add similar kinds of documents, similar kinds of invoices uh, in a collection. And in a single collection, you must add at least 5 documents, 5 invoices, and it can go up to 20. Okay. So you can see this is a collection of 5. These are similar. I have added vendor's name over here, and this is another collection. Okay, uh, which is over here. Also, I would also highly recommend all of you to use PDF formats. Don't use PNG formats. Use PDF formats. I have used over here. Don't, like, Microsoft allows you to use PNG formats, JPEG formats, and different images formats, but don't use them, because what is happening is, say for example, if your image is not clear, then nothing is going to be visible, right? Like if your image is not clear, then the OCR which the model is going to work, say for example, this is 3, right? It is going to consider it as 6. So then the invoice which you are going to train, or the invoice which you are trained, then they are not going to be proper. This is not true just for training your model, but even when you're actually using it, prefer a PDF format. Okay. Then when you go over here, you're going to tag the document. Okay. So as you can see, I've already tagged this collection with the relevant field. Let me give me a second. Yes. Let me go to this collection and let me show this to you. Okay. Look at this. Just this is the table when we have all our line items, whatever we need. This is the name of the salesperson. I have tagged it. So if I go over here, if I remove this tag and if I retag it, then you can see this is in a custom field table, right? This is a text field of salesperson. I'll tag it. This document is going to get tagged. Or some of the fields are automatically tagged, some of them are not tagged. So you have to do it. But I will also recommend everyone to manually tag each and every field, such that there is what you can say, there is no difference between you and what Microsoft has done. Because by default, when these fields are being tagged, it is going to consider, if say for example here it is bill to rate, then it is not considering it. But if there's something, say your customer name is over here in this bill to section, what is going to happen is Microsoft is going to consider that as a vendor. So you need to check, and when you are manually doing it, there is not going to be a lot of error, because Microsoft would have captured or would have taken that field uh, to some different name. So even the customer name that would have become a vendor name. So that is something which we must always keep in mind. And this table, right? Even though this is item number, I have named it to, let me not edit this table. Let me just preview this table. So product code. Okay. I'll tell you this about this when we open Dynamics. So this is the address, vendor's address, and this is the vendor's name. Had I not, manually marked it, what would have happened? It would have considered both of this as vendor's name. That is wrong, right? That is not what we want. And if I go on next, you see, you'll have a summary of your model. Uh, how many examples are there? What is going to be there? So the salesperson is basically available in 12 of the documents which I have shared, right? Payment terms is also going to be available in 5 of the documents which I have shared. And then you click on train the model, right? But I have already pre-trained this model. We won't train it because in the end, it is an AI ML model. And the more amount of information you're going to give it, the more resource and the more computational power it is going to require when you're going to train this model. Okay. So usually since this is a small model, we have not added a lot of collections and it is already being built on a top of a pre-built model. So it is going to take 15 minutes for this model. However, as you increase the numbers of your collection, uh, as your models grows, as the number of collection grows, so would the time required, to train the model would grow. Just give it a second. Let's see if I close this. So you can see this, right. Let me use this version, last trained version. So this is a confidence scores of our model, right? The a model shows how much confident it actually is to correctly, accurately predict what the salesperson is. So it is saying that based on the amount of data it has been trained on, it is 93% confident that it is able to, get the salesperson correct. Okay. And for vendors address, it is 77% confidence because in some of my models on which I have trained, I have not, tagged vendors address because there were different formats. So I have tagged with the vendor's name. So you see, in this version, the vendor address is going to be 75. And in this version, the vendor address is going to be 77. Why? Because I have trained this on, on more number of collections. First, I have only trained this on a single collection. Then as I have increased the number of collections, uh, the confidence score of the model is going to, get increased. So this was all about, custom model within Power Apps. Another advantage of going with Power Apps is you can use this model not only with Dynamics 365, but you can also use this model with, with other applications such as Power Automate, and you can, integrate Azure. You can integrate your, you can make your flow in Power Automate. You can make your flow, you can design a logic app within this Power Apps itself. So you don't need for this model, as this is a standalone feature, it's integrated into Dynamics, but you can also use it at, as a standalone only model, which you are using it within your different application or as per the business requirement which you have. So now let me again switch gears and let me open, finance and operations, invoice capture. So as you can see over here, this is the purchase order for which I have this the purchase order number. Let me check my purchase order number. It is 158, right? Contains 158. So for this purchase order, this vendor name, this is the vendor account number. And for this vendor name, I have trained my model. Okay. Sorry, this is not model. I apologize. I have, created my purchase order for this vendor's name. So if you go to home page, You click on invoice capture, which you have to set up. You have to set up everything, you know, beforehand. This is the invoice capture setup. As I've already told, this has been done in the previous sessions. So this is the dashboard. First, since we are using custom model, let me, first go to into the system setup and show you something. So when you open system setup, you go to system preferences. This is the model which you are using. This is the standard model, the invoice processing model. Okay. This option, although within Power Platform, within Power Apps, our custom model was already present, long ago. However, this feature has been only enabled in AI Builder model in Dynamics after January. So even when in the initial phase of January, when you are trying to open this, although you have trained your model and everything was visible, but this field was, turned off. So you can't make any changes over here. This was, I believe, done later around after 20th of January. This field was, being enabled. Only then you can add your invoice processing model. Okay. So I have trained two models. One of the models was, I have trained it on less data, and another I have trained which I have shown it to you. So there are two AI models which are available. Also, when you are going to edit something or when you are going to, try to configure this, the pre-built model cannot be configured. Okay. So if I go and open my custom model, my custom working model, uh, let me open this and you can see the configuration, right? So while I was this is the model mapping which we are going to use. These are the invoice fields which are available in Dynamics, and this is the model fields which we have trained on. So you can see I have trained my model field product code, and which is the field which I have trained in the model, and I have mapped it to the item number which is available in Dynamics. Okay. So my product code on which I have trained my model, that is directly mapped to item number. So my product, all the values in the column of the product code, they are now going into item number in Dynamics. Okay. So this is something which you can customize. This is something which you can change based on your business requirement. There are multiple fields and you can work on it. So this is a file field. You can also, filter your files. And I have set it to minimum 0. So any file which I can, upload, the size does not matter because I was trying to demonstrate it. The size does not matter. So these are all the accepted formats which Microsoft allows in invoice capture. But as I have, said before, I would highly recommend you to go with PDF format, the PNG and the JPEG format. Please don't use it. As in my experiences, what is happening is the OCR is unable to recognize multiple fields. This is a configuration group, which I have, turned it off. This is a customized configuration group where I have, for demonstration purposes, I have set the confidence score to, to 55 as warning, and greater than 55, then it is not going to show an alert. As you can see in this field, right? This is a very important part. Microsoft only has 4 mandatory fields which you must have in your invoice model. That is invoice number, purchase order, currency code, and total amount. These 4 fields are mandatory. These 4 fields must be there in your, invoice model. Only then your invoice model is going to work. The rest of the fields, this bill to address and even the vendor's name, that is non-mandatory. You can make it mandatory or you can remove it as per your convenience or as per your business requirement. You can use it. Okay. But these 4 fields in the headers, especially invoice number, purchase order, and currency code, these are mandatory. You can't change it. You can't remove it. This must be there for invoice to work. Okay. Now this continuous learning, so continuous learning must be turned off. Although when you're using your pre-built model, continuous learning is highly advisable that you turn it on. But when you're using a custom invoice model, continuous learning must be turned off, because what is happening is say for example, the vendor is there, right? So the previous successful vendor name or the vendor account was mapped to something else. So what if you have enabled this continuous learning? What is going to happen is when you are trying to update a new vendor account and when your invoice contains different vendor's name, the model is, since the last one was success, right? The model will pick that one up since it is continuously learning. So it will try to fill that information beforehand using a previous vendor. So what is going to happen since the purchase order is not created, is not tagged to that vendor, uh, your invoice is going to throw you an error like the vendor is not there. I'll show this to you. When I was doing R&D, I had already enabled continuous learning because for standard it is highly recommended that you use continuous learning, right? But while actually working on customized model, this must be turned off. Okay. So let me now go into manage invoice vendor and I'll first show you what I was speaking about this customer model, right? Capture all invoice models. Yes. I believe the obsolete one. Hmm. Yes, this one, right? You can see the vendor account is US 105. If I open my Dynamics, okay. If I open my Dynamics and if I open, say, for example, all vendors, and within all vendors, if I open US 105, that is datum receivers, right? But over here, as you can see in my invoice model, it is going to show as humongous instance. Why? Because I had enabled at that time, I had enabled continuous learning. So from the previous invoice, that is this one, I believe. Yes. It has taken what you can say the name of the vendor, which was successfully transferred. So that is something which which you must keep in mind when you are doing the invoice capture. Now let me go over here. Okay. And now let me upload my invoice, which I have actually trained it upon. Okay. So the invoice which I am showing to you, the format of this invoice is trained upon, but this invoice specifically, especially is not trained. This is a new invoice which I had made, and I'll be showing it to you. So the invoice is successfully uploaded. You can see in the receiving file that the invoice is uploaded. Now the status is waiting, and let me refresh it. It is now, receiving the invoice.
Hamza, I can see Karthik has raised his hand. Karthik, uh,
Yeah,
go ahead and ask the question.
yeah. Hi, Hamza. Thanks for
Hello, Karthik.
this. I just want to know this statement where you are saying that continuous learning ribbon turned off in case of custom model. Is it this is your learning
Yes,
experience, or this is what Microsoft is telling?
this is my learning experience, not Microsoft recommended. Because while I was learning this, right, as I've already told you, when I was uploading with different vendors, what is happening is uh, the name of the vendors which I was trying to get, it was taking a different vendor account. So it was not filling. So this is something which I have learned. This is not Microsoft, what you can say, recommended approach.
But each say, but for a when you are doing the implementation, each vendor has its own format. There could be cases where multiple vendors can use, or one or two vendors can have the same format. But in that case, even in that case, when you are training a collection, it is termed that collection should be, I mean, when I trained, it was more of like I was training one collection per vendor, right?
Mhm,
So you are saying that even if the collections are different, even
mhm.
if the formats are different, but still we have to keep this turned off.
Yes, because what is happening is I told you right. The vendor's name, it is taking, say for example, if you have a different vendor name, what it is trying to do, it is trying to get, if it this name it is unable to capture, what is it doing? It is trying to take the vendor account of the one in which it was actually
Of
successful. Like
it was the last
the
transfer you are saying. The
yes,
last
yes,
successfully transfer invoice, it will try to capture the same
yes,
account ID of that one.
yes.
Okay. But in that case, in if that is such the case, then we have to retrain our model back and forth. I mean, that's the additional effort we are trying to say here. Don't you think? It's additional effort.
Yes, that's the reason, right? Invoice capture is
So
it is new for us and it is also new for Microsoft, as you told, right? At this time only we can add a single model. Similarly, down the line, we will be able to add multiple models to system preferences. So at that time, I believe, this approach of Microsoft should change a bit
okay, got it.
because
Yep.
at this stage, this is what it is working. But down the line, down the line, say for example, give it 2 to 3 months, then everything should, all these nitpicks, which are there, all these bugs you can call, should be, ironed out by Microsoft.
Got it. Yeah.
So you can see our invoices has been already been verified and transferred. Like it's not transferred, it's been verified, so there are no errors. There's a warning. The warning says that the invoice number field, right? This field, since I have not trained in my model, I have not manually mapped it. Some there was the collections does not have a lot of invoice numbers. The confidence score is low. So this is the actual field. Say for example, this is the PO number, right? It is able to actively pick up my PO number. It is able to match it with dynamics and check. Say for example, if this PO number does not match the PO number which I have created in dynamics, then things are not going to work. Then it is going to throw us an error saying that for this purchase order, there is no purchase order which is created. Like this purchase order, there is no number which is created, right? This currency code. So if you can see, right, I have never trained my model on currency code, but it was able to capture, currency code. How it was able to capture currency code? Because at that time when I was training this, I had enabled continuous learning. Okay. Since I had enabled continuous learning when I was training it, it was able to capture currency code from one of the invoices in which I had, explicitly mentioned that the currency code must be there. I explicitly mentioned the currency code as USD. It was actively, being able to capture the currency code from that invoice. And at that time, continuous learning was on. So now it is able to use that information which which my model was trained on, and it is able to, use it over here, use it the currency code over here. Okay. Now all the item numbers and everything should be there. It should match. You see, item number. They are matching. The line descriptions are matching. The total amount should also match. And then after all this is done, you can transfer your invoice. Okay. And I have, say for example, this is something which I missed to tell you all about. When you're using standard invoice model, right? In standard invoice model, you will have an option of key value pair over here. You can see what are the keys and what are its values, which is been mapped over here. But when you're using, custom model, this is another limitation. Like now, until now, you can't see the key value mapping when you're going with customization. So the moment you turn to, to custom models, that key value mapping field is not going to be available anymore. That field will be automatically turned off. So the space over here, if you use, standard model, you would, in the previous session, you would have seen the key value mapping over here. But the moment you turn your customization on, that key value mapping is going to be, not being available anymore. So one of the questions when I was doing, custom model is, since we have able to, use the key value mapping and we can directly map it over here, then why there is a need to, to even go for customization? The thing is, for that mapping to work, Microsoft or the pre-trained model, the invoice capture model, the pre-trained model, it should be able to actively, using OCR, it should be able to actively recognize what are the terms which are using, right? What are the objects, what are the words which are there on the invoices. So if I have uploaded this invoice, in the standard model, what would happen is, it would actually capture everything, but it would never capture this. It would have, ignored this one because it does not know what this does is, right? So it would have ignored this one. And if there is no keys, right, then you won't be able to, map it to any values. So you must have a key. That's the reason you would go for, customization. So now if I transfer the invoices manually, it has been transferred and you can open in Dynamics and you can see it, right, in the pending invoice form, right? 158 datum received. This is the one which we have done, right? So and now the dynamic process is going to start. Yes, that's all from me. If you have any questions, you
Yeah,
can ask.
Hamza,
one
yeah,
question here,
yeah.
Hamza. How
Mhm.
how you were able to tackle it was a PO invoice. PO number was mandatory. You haven't filled that one. How the score was, I mean, not the score, how
No,
the error was set to 0.
I'll show you the PO number. Although you can see, right? Give me a second. Yes, although you can't see the PO number here, right? But if you look,
Right?
actually, it is able to get
Yeah,
the PO number, but you
right.
won't be able to see it here because I sometimes what is happening is, even though it is actively capturing the PO number, it is not showing over here. And this actively captured PO number is being matched with the PO number which is there. So if you look at the invoice which I had, which I was working when I was training this, when I was preparing for this session, uh, this obsoletes one. Let me give if it has different PO, right? You see, this purchase order was made for vendor account 106. This is 105, right? And I had
Right.
enabled continuous learning. So the account is 105. Even though this PO is there, right?
Yeah.
Even though it is saying this PO is there, since it is unable to find this purchase order for this vendor, it is going as an error message. So this invoice is not going to work.
Okay.
So although you can't see a PO over here, it is actively taking it, it is actually capturing it, and it is actively using it in, in Dynamics.
Okay. One more question here. So when you are saying you have enabled the continuous learning first and then you
Hmm.
have disabled it, so how
Hmm.
after how many invoices you have disabled it? I mean, how we will convey the user this has to be turned off after some time?
The thing is, you should turn it off beforehand. The reason I had enabled it, as I was, exploring it, I was learning it, I was unable to find why, although I have, worked everything else up, although I have worked everything on custom invoices, why my vendor account is not working properly. So then I was checking it because as you know, in standard invoices, it is highly recommended that you, even in any machine learning model, it is highly recommended that you turn, continuous learning on. But for specifically at this stage of time, it should be turned off. Okay, I had enabled it. So the advantage of me being enabling it is this currency code, right? Although you can't see it over here, this got turned on after I have trained it on some other invoices, which I deleted it now.
Don't
Uh,
you
bec-
think currency code will be coming from the vendor account?
and the if you open, the document, in that
Right?
the invoice capture document, it has, in that document there are two paths from which the currency code might come. One, it may come from Dynamics itself. Okay, the currency code will come from Dynamics, that is from vendors and everything. And another is, it will actively pick it up from the invoice which you have. Okay, so there are two paths from which the currency
Okay.
code will come.
So generally, these invoice for generally these invoice formats doesn't have any like dollar sign or CAD or USD, right? So
Yes,
how
yes.
exactly OCR is helping here in terms of identifying currency code? I mean,
Yes.
how exactly you are training your model on the currency code? If you can just explain that a bit.
So, since this is a trial environment, right? So,
Right.
within a trial environment, all the fields and all the legal entities which you are using are default. So, for some of the vendors, the currency code is not there. But what I had done is I had explicitly mentioned the currency code in an invoice, and I trained it while enabling the continuous learning on. So the what would be the proper approach for business, as you know, as in a process, the proper approach would be that you would have pre-trained this in model, you would have pre-trained it, using this sign. This currency sign is being actively recognized in the model. I can't remember on the fly which field it is there, but if you open the documentation, it is there that you can recognize it. This currency code is going to get recognized in the total amount. So you can pick it up from there. And as you are saying that if it is not there in invoice, then you can just add it directly in your, what you can say, in
In
Dynamics
the
itself, that yeah, manually
in
you
the
can add
manual
it.
review process
Yes, you can
from
add
the
it,
drop down.
what is there. Yes,
Yeah.
or you can
Okay.
add it in Dynamics in the vendors, that this, for this
Yeah, yeah.
vendor, the currency
Once it
code
is
is going to be
transferred,
there.
yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Yeah.
In one of the scenario, Karthik, that I have seen in my project implementation, where the vendor invoice itself has a bank account number. Okay.
Right.
And customer wants that bank account number while scanning that page, through this invoice capture. They want this bank account number to be validated with the bank account master of vendor. What it
Right.
means that if the bank account number is missing in the master for some reason because of missing data, they don't want that invoice to be processed.
To be
So that is
processed. Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
yeah, that is what, and this is typically in a European region where they give more importance to bank account number than the vendor ID, vendor name, and the total amount. Okay.
Right.
They pull that the bank account number to this. So in that case, what we have done, we build a custom AI model and then we train that model as explained by Hamza, and we also add a condition or validation inside FNO by using the custom field, so that when it's try to scan and pass the information as a JSON array to the FNO,
Right.
that custom logic get execute. It's validate whether that bank account number exists in the master of bank account master of vendor. If not, it throws error message.
So that extension you are mentioning, which Microsoft enabled recently, we can adopt in I think 10.0.39. So
Yes,
that's the
sir.
one you are telling. There are like couple of four methods you can
Enable it.
extend it,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you can get to extend the logic wherever. Like right now, like document number field is not enabled, or say description field is not enabled. So if you want to customize those fields, you want to enable those fields from the OCR,
mm,
you can extend those fields, or you can change any existing logic from any of the existing
yes,
field
sir.
mapping if you can. But that is
Yes, sir.
more from a so what what we are trying to say here is, don't customize power apps, just be work in X++ extensions to remap the logic wherever need be to put the validations in.
In case if you have that scenario of a custom field and you need a validation on top of that,
Right.
right?
Right.
Nothing more than that. Earlier, it
Okay.
was not exist. Earlier, it was just a pretty much standard and it would pass through. If that validation is exist in the code, then those methods were not extensible reads.
Extensible.
And
Yes, correct.
okay, now those methods or those platforms now enable it, right? So we can build those custom logic. It is up to vendor or customer or partner if they want to really customize, but that capability exists, which is also described in this invoice capture implementation guide. If you
Right.
download
Right.
it from
Jammer. Yeah.
App Store. Yammer or App Store. It's there on App Store. I mean, that's how I learn. It's always Yammer is the best option to go for it. But if you just look at App Stores, there's a link available on the second tab, which is detail plus support, and you will see a latest guidance.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Any further question?
I have couple more, but I'll let others to talk first, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Nikita, go ahead.
This is built on top of dataverse, right? Dual, right? Do we know the exact entity that the standard invoice solution use, like payment journal or any specific entity that standard is
So
using?
As I understand, the entities that we use for data entities, you mean
That's right.
these are virtual, these are based on virtual data entity. So the whatever data that you capture in the Dataverse table. So Invoice Capture is the Power App. The database that works in the backend is Dataverse, but our target system is Dynamics SQL tables. So
Right.
through virtual entities, it is transferring that data. Now,
So
what are those
can
entities? So
we
if you go
add
into
so can we add other validations if we have some custom validation we need to add, for example, currency, and we wish to add a default value for a currency in the map entity to data source methods that we use for generic entities, right? Data entities. Can we do that in this case?
okay, you mean when you create a data project in the data management workspace and you do a default value, that kind of thing?
Yeah, or in the code itself, right? In the data entity logic, where in the methods
Yes,
we can
you
default it. So is there a
yeah.
specific entity that the product is using so that we can
No,
just
there are
customize that?
yeah, there are three or four entities. I can't seem to remember the name, but those are suffixed or prefixed by invoice capture or in capture or AI entity, something like that. I'm unable to remember the name, but I remember quite distinctly that there are these specialized entities related to invoice capture, which are responsible to bring the data from Power Apps, that is from the Dataverse tables, into the Dynamics SQL tables. And how is it done? There is a badge job in FNO. It's called transfer invoices from invoice capture. And there is a controller class within that badge job. You can explore that controller class if you have a tier one instance with you, a VM instance for FNO. You can open that controller class. You can read the logic within that. And the custom fields what Rakesh mentioned. So if you have some custom fields, in that case, the data retrieval process is somewhat different. In that case, the data retrieval process is a JSON array. So when you are adding a custom fields, you need to write a chain of command. I think that that is mentioned in quite
So
extensively
that
in
will follow the like whatever the steps we are doing for customization, we can follow the same on those entities as well.
yes, and you can find more on that in the app source link that Rakesh just shared. If Rakesh, you can, yeah, he has already shared in chat. So if you open this
Yeah.
link, you can see that within this link, let me just quickly share my screen. So I'll just guide you where it is. So if I open this link, it will open something like this. Okay. And there is a link under the links details plus support. Under the links tab, there is an implementation guide. Okay. You open this implementation guide, you go to page number 51 or 50 somewhere. Yeah, standard financial dimensions. So out of the box, there are three financial dimensions, but what if I need five or six? I have location and all the others. So this is what the code supports: financial dimension serialization. So you see, if I have department, business center, and cost center, business unit and cost center. Besides this, if I have something else, then there is a section here. Let me try and find. Yeah, support custom field in invoice capture. Properties of custom field. So you
And
see
and
implementation steps.
validations, yeah, I see the code also at the 51 page that
Mhm.
they have, yeah.
Yeah, this is the code,
I
the
Yeah,
JSON array that I was talking about. Map
mapping,
the
yeah,
custom fields to
yeah, yeah,
corresponding fields in Dynamics. So this is like a chain of command. So you let
right.
the logic execute. A JSON array, a J array is passed on. J array is a concept of, I believe, is
I
C
think
sharp or C++.
validations also can be handled here, right? In the
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
same
This
way.
is
So
this is a place
it's
for the
similar
validation.
to, yeah,
So I
it's
think the
similar to the
currency and all
custom.
also can be handled here, I
Yeah, yeah,
believe.
yeah,
Like if
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, it's like a custom services. The custom API services, what you do. So it's the same. It's a data contract class. You're just bringing data here, and then you apply your custom logic and whatever validations you want. And there is this guide. This guide also speaks about a completely customized invoice model, which Hamza just showed in the session. So this guide talks about that as well. So it's a very useful guide. If you go through this guide page by page, line by line, I don't think there is any scenario that Microsoft has left out.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that helps.
Okay. Any more questions?
Yeah, I have one question.
Yeah,
So
Devendra.
regarding the the translation capabilities, because when we are implementing into the multi-country rollouts, and when the businesses are having the transactions with the overseas vendor, so it is quite a the generic scenario that they will send the invoice in the local languages. So how these translation capabilities are inbuilt in this AI offering?
So I think whoever asked that question, I was not.
Debanjan,
So
Debanjan,
the,
Debanjan.
It's
yeah,
Devanjan,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Debanjan. Hi, Debanjan. So when you say translation capability, so what happens is, I don't know if you have been following how you train. So this model is basically a neural network model. So it's a deep neural network. And I don't know if you're familiar with the MNIST dataset. So what MNIST dataset has, it has a number of letters and number of um numbers and all those things. So point being, since it's a neural network and Microsoft has talked about the translation, so what will happen if I upload an invoice in Russian? What will happen if I upload an invoice in Spanish? What this model will do, there is no configuration change. Microsoft has already trained it on so many invoices across multiple languages that it will pick up that data and directly populate into Dynamics. Okay, there is no translation need that you need to implement. There is no configuration within invoice capture or Dynamics that you need to implement. Since Microsoft has already trained, I'm talking about the standard model, of course, not the customized model. The standard model has been extensively trained on multiple different languages, multiple invoices on multiple languages. So you don't have any configuration change as such. It will automatically pick up the data and populate in Dynamics. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I just copy paste some of the link, Debanjan, just for your reference. If you want to really understand how many languages in today's world it does support when it comes to invoice based model that Microsoft supports. Just some understanding perspective, right?
Oh, that's really great. Thank you, Rakesh.
Yeah. It will really help you to understand the aspect of languages and the files. Okay. I think we are almost there. So I think we can conclude for now. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us and shared your knowledge and insights. I think I personally learn a lot. I'm sure you also learn a lot. So stay connected and stay tuned for the next session. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.